Hi there, everyone. We are going to get started in just a minute here, so hang tight and I will be back with you. All right, so thanks so much for joining us today. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Up here where I am in Saskatchewan, Canada, it's a rainy day, so I hope that wherever you are, you have some sunshine. Um, Welcome to today's webinar. So my name is Jenna, and I work for Emerging Destinations. We represent cool companies and cool places. Today, I'm being joined by Ian from Bushmasters. Now, for me, this is one of the coolest products because of the exciting and unique adventures that Bushmasters offer in Guyana. Ian's going to give us an overview of the different experiences that they offer. But in the coming months, we're going to be doing activity-specific webinars that go into further details. So for that reason, Ian will only be touching on them briefly today, but don't worry because there's more to come. And I will definitely make sure to update you with that information once we have the rest of those confirmed. Before we get started though, I just wanted to take a quick moment to introduce our portfolio to you. So today, of course, we're talking about Guyana, but in South America, we also have Hotel Las Torres, Fantástico Sur, and Cruz Andino in Patagonia, in Argentina and Chile. We have Grand Hotels Lux in Argentina and Uruguay. We have Jungle Experiences and the Amazon River Cruises in Peru. And then further north, we have Terra Nova in Costa Rica. And then, of course, we have our African portfolio. We have our Kelly and Peacock Safaris, Alawana Collection, and Sky Safari by Alawana. That's in Kenya and Tanzania. We have our Eco Training in South Africa. And we have Adventure Consults in Uganda and Rwanda. And then lastly, we have our polar cruises. So we have our Venture Canada doing the Canadian Arctic, and Iceland Pro Cruises and Iceland Pro Travel in Iceland and Greenland. So just a very brief overview of those for you. Now, if you have any questions about any of our other clients, or if you want to receive additional information, brochures, previous webinar links, any of that, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is at the bottom there, so jen@emergingdestinations.com. A couple quick housekeeping items to go over before we begin. This webinar will be recorded, so if you need to step away for any reason, please don't worry. We will be sending out the recording to everyone later this week. And also, we will be posting them to our Emerging Destinations YouTube channel, so you can always find our previous recorded webinars on our YouTube channel or on our Emerging Destinations website as well. We'd also like to welcome you to participate throughout the webinar. So you can send us over a question or comments, anything that you have throughout Ian's presentation using the GoToWebinar control panel located on the right-hand side there. We will get Ian to answer as many of these questions as possible at the end of the session. If there are some that we are unable to get to, we will make sure to send all of the answers to you in our webinar follow-up. But on that note, I'm going to hand things over to Ian, who's going to give us a brief introduction to his company and the experiences that they offer in Guyana.
Okay, hi, my name is Ian from Bushmasters, and this presentation is about the company that we run in Guyana in South America. It's a British company. I'm from the UK, born in Stratford, which is where Shakespeare's from. So by the age of 10, my mum had me at every Shakespearean play you can imagine. Hence my hatred of English Shakespearean stuff now. After school, I joined the British Army, went to a place called Sandhurst, which is the Officer Academy, and then spent 12 years in the military, in an infantry unit and in the British Special Forces. And when I left, which was in 2000, I started looking for something fun to do. My time in the army, outside of all the army stuff, had been spent a great deal doing adventurous type things in various parts of the world. So I spent a lot of time in the jungle as a jungle instructor. I ran the survival school at Hereford. So I spent many, many weeks struggling and suffering in variable situations which they put you through in the military, in Europe, in the Arctic, in the desert, in the jungle. And I also had the great good fortune to go on lots of expeditions, from small stuff in the South Atlantic, where I went down to a tiny little island called Beauchene, to go and check it out after a trawler had crashed on the rocks, and it was a UN protected haven with 70% of the world's albatross population living on it, which was quite an entertaining day. Right up to 3 or 4 month long expeditions in the Himalaya, climbing unclimbed mountains. And certainly when I left the military, that desire to go off and do fun things in remote places stayed with me, and still is to this day. After the army, I had good luck. A very good friend of mine from the military had set up a company in the UK. It was actually based in Buckingham Palace Road, so just around the corner from Buckingham Palace itself in London. And we ran specifically jungle expeditions around the world based on scientific projects, conservation work, and working with the indigenous peoples who lived there. It was mainly in Borneo, but also in Belize. And Belize, where I was sent to be the command person in charge of organising all the expeditions. And Belize is where I spent my jungle experience 10 years ago. So it's quite fun, great to go there. After a few years in Belize, the company I worked for was very, very keen to find a jungle location in Amazonia, because of course of all the world's jungles, the Amazon rainforest is the biggest and the best. So they sent me to Guyana. And after 2 or 3 years here in Guyana running the same expeditions for that company, I set up my own, which was called Bushmasters. It's still called Bushmasters. The main reason for that was that the expeditions that we had done with Trek Force were great. They were really good fun, but they weren't really pushing it. They were mainly static. We did the odd exploratory trek, but it was mainly around conservation projects, building range stations and things like that. And because I had seen the jungle up close a lot by that point, there were tons of places I wanted to go and check out, which most likely no one, bar indigenous people, thousands of years ago, had ever been. It's still one of those places left on the planet that most of it people haven't been, or if they had, it was millennia ago, and there's no recorded history of what they found or what they saw. So in 2005, I set up Bushmasters, and the emphasis was on a number of key expeditionary type trips. They were all aimed at being about 2 weeks long, just to fit in with normal holiday time that people have. And they were the jungle survival, which is loosely based around some of the stuff we used to do in the military. A lot of training. We spent a lot of time teaching people how things work for real. Because although you might see on these TV shows people rubbing sticks together to make fire and so on and so forth, it doesn't actually work like that in the real world, especially if you haven't spent the last 20 years learning how to do it. So it had to be practical things, things that were likely to help you and to work, given that you had a basic level of knowledge, if not none. So we set up a jungle survival course, which is 2 weeks long. And that has been the mainstay of what we do. We run that trip about 3 or 4 times each year. On from the jungle survival, I was very keen to get out and see some of these remote places I just spoke about. So we started setting up venture expeditions. Each one of those is new. We do it once and then we never do it again. And it sounds a little bit selfish, but I've got a tick list of hundreds of places in Guyana that I want to go and check out, to find the 30-foot anaconda and to see where this river goes, and to find out if it is full of small jaguar-like cats, as the legends say, in this particular part of the jungle, which no one goes. So each of these expeditions is things that I've learned from the locals, some of their history, some of their stories, and then looking at the geography, because I'm flying over it in planes and helicopters a lot, and I see a rocky mound sticking up out of the forest. I'm like, what's there? Has anyone ever been there? How do we get there? Let's go and check it out. So we do at least one venture expedition every year. As I say, we don't repeat them. So we do it once and that's it, done. And then we move on. So whoever would go on those type of trips, they know it's unique. We don't repeat it. And most of the time, they are probably the first people to go there, certainly the first foreigners. I mean, obviously in the past, the indigenous Amerindian people may have been there, but there's no evidence of that. The other great thing about Guyana, although it's 87% jungle, a huge portion of it is also savannah. Kind of reminds people of the Serengeti. And in the south of the country in particular, there is a huge savannah region, which in history was the home to the largest cattle ranch on the planet, at 3.3 million acres, which is pretty big. Even today, this ranch is over 1 million acres, which makes it bigger than anything in Texas. And it is an area of the country inhabited by an indigenous group called the Wapishana tribe. And hundreds of years ago, probably about 150, 200 years ago, the colonial settlers, mainly from the UK, set up cattle ranches there and employed the local people as their cowboys or vaqueros. It's a stunning place. There are still dozens of family cattle ranches which have been working as they have done for hundreds of years. The people ride barefoot, they make their own saddles, they lather the cows with the lassos that they've made themselves from rawhide. It's a stunning place, my favorite place in the whole of the country. So we started doing ranch-based expeditions to these places probably about 10, 12 years ago. And we try to do 1 or 2 of those each year. It's stunning. There's no electricity, there's no running water, but there's crystal clear creeks, giant anteaters roaming the savannah, and the most sure-footed horses to ride, full gallop chasing down the cattle that you can possibly imagine. I've ridden a lot of horses, including Arabs, because I do trips in Jordan in the desert, but these are by far the sturdiest and strongest horses that I've ever read, and they're absolutely brilliant. It's a stunning place, great stars, and lots of rum, of course, being a ranch. When you combine the ranches and the jungle, and the fact that so much of it is so remote with no tarmac roads whatsoever, just dusty trails or muddy tracks, it's also a great location for off-roading. And what we in the West would call off-roading, people here call just everyday travel. This is how they move. Everyone uses ATVs, customized 4x4 trucks. Everyone knows how to fix them. Everyone knows how to bush mechanic them on the side of the trail. everyone knows to read the trail in such a way as to make sure they don't get too stuck and how to get unstuck. And it's just a great off-roading environment. So we have also started, also about 10 years ago, an off-roading 4x4 and ATV trip, where we use the ATVs ahead of the 4x4s to actually find the trail, to mark the line that the bigger 4x4s can follow to cover through the jungle and the savannah of the south of Guyana. Great fun. We're often stopping off at these ranches that I've just mentioned, so we often combine them with a day or two on the ranch, and they're really, really, really good fun. One of the best trips that we do. A few years ago, I had a rather wealthy chap contact me and decided he wanted to do a hardcore and amazing one-off expedition in Guyana, and what could I come up with? And Guyana, of course, is just full of possibilities. So what we came up with was that we would go in by helicopter, jump out of the helicopter into a river with all our gear, inflatable kayaks, and then paddle for 100 kilometers before hitting 800-foot sheer drop waterfall, which we would then rappel down, and because of the angle of the rope, that was actually a 1,200-foot rappel, to the bottom, and then come out from the bottom by helicopter dangling off a rope that's hanging below it. And that led me to getting in a load of very sturdy inflatable two-man kayaks. Those kayaks have proven to be gold dust. We can get to so many places and cover so much terrain with them. Guyana as a word is an indigenous word, which means land of many waters. And certainly here we have tons and tons of rivers and creeks. So going in by kayak and paddling them by kayak allows us the opportunity to cover large areas of terrain. And of course, they're quiet. And if you want to sneak up on jaguars and tapirs and anacondas and so forth, the best way to do that is quietly. So each year now we run a kayak expedition, always somewhere new, always a new river. Sometimes we go in by helicopter, sometimes it's a trek in. We've actually had to portage all our gear and kayaks for 2 days on the back of rather robust bulls through the forest and dump it all next to a river before starting paddling. So that has taken off in the last 4 or 5 years into quite a big thing, and one of my favorites, simply because you get to cover so much terrain and you can actually see it. In the jungle, there's a lot of trees, so with your eyes you only see maybe 100 feet at a time. But on a kayak, you're on a river and you can see much further. You see the macaws and the harpy eagles and the monkeys and everything else. So from a wildlife point of view, it's great fun. And of course, you get to cover much more distance, which opens up the possibility of seeing a lot more. And then the final big area is probably TV work. Because it is Guyana and the way that the country is, with remoteness and huge amounts of jungle, English speaking, a great place for TV productions. And we've had all sorts of TV shows here, from the Naked and Afraid show, which many of you would have watched. We just a couple of months ago finished a shoot with Gordon Ramsay, where we actually had him rappelling out of a helicopter into the jungle. So we normally get through about 1 or 2 shoots each year for all the major channels, Discovery, BBC, Natural Geographic, and so forth. The survival course is, as I said, the mainstay. It's 3 main phases where we teach people how to make fire, how to purify water, how to make shelters, and how to get food. The first 2 phases are training. The first one is the basics, and the second one is the more advanced stuff. And then at the end of it, we let people go into an isolation phase where we actually leave you on your own for a couple of days in the forest, with just the belt kit, a bow and arrow, which you can see in that guy's hand there, and the machete, which you can see hanging off his left side. And you have to survive. There's no food. You have a 1 litre water bottle, and that's it. No mosquito nets, nothing like that, just what you have on your survival kit. That has proven to be very popular, and we are now each year running an extreme survival course, which is only for those who have passed the original course or who have some sort of background. We train quite a few military teams from around the world. So we've had Navy SEALs and Swedish SF and British SF, Special Forces guys here on training as well. So jungle survival is the main one. And like I say, we run about 4 trips a year of the basic course and at least one of the extreme course each year. But you can only do that if you pass the basic. The venture expeditions, we run at least one a year that I have planned, which makes it more affordable. But of course, we open these up to all manners of people who want to come and do something crazy. And we have had quite a few wealthier clients who have come to abseil down big waterfalls like the one you can see in the distance there, or repower our helicopters, or even to start hitting the waterfalls themselves, abseiling down. All these trips are new. We don't repeat them. You can do all sorts of things, from abseiling down waterfalls, going on to the big Tepui, which I'll show you a photo of in a moment. Deep, deep jungle treks. We did one last year to go and find a source of a river that no one knew where it was, which was a success. And it was actually in a different place to what we had imagined. And of course, because we have such a large, expansive jungle, we use helicopters quite a lot on those to get around, which is always good fun because we just take the doors off so you can sit on the skids and be about 20 feet above the jungle as we whiz around. The ranch, my favorite place. That's one of my horses there, Tom Tom. He's called Tom Tom because he's got like a GPS in him, and every time you point him in the right direction, he just runs home. Lovely place in the south. You can see in the images that it's quite a broad, open area. It's great cowboy terrain, vaqueros as they are known here. Everything is done old school. You can see that the corral is split wood. That is where all the work takes place, where newborns are branded, where the animals are checked to make sure they're not injured, because of life on the savannah can be quite hard. And don't forget, there's still jaguars and pumas and things like that out there trying to have a go at them. And it's just awesome fun. But of course, the main highlight is just riding generally. It is a stunning place to ride a horse. You get out there, you can round up the cattle, bring them back to the corral. And then all this is done in a huge open savannah, which is just stunning. And as I spend most of my life in the jungle, it's nice to come out to get those huge vistas that the savannah offers at times. It really is an idyllic place. Off-roading, like I say, we use the ATVs and 4x4s. That's me in the front now on the green bike. The 4x4s tend to be Toyotas. I'm British, so I really, really, really want a Land Rover. But the reality is that the Toyotas are the best at the moment, simply because there's lots of the spare parts here, and the mechanics, the bush mechanics, know how to fix them on the trails. But these are proper old 4x4s, nothing electric in them. If the accelerator cable, you tie a piece of string around, pass that string through the window and pull with your hand and off. So the vehicles are designed so that no matter where we are, we can fix things. There's no cell, we're not calling the automobile club, we have to be able to do everything ourselves. And of course, it's the clients who are doing all these things. They're the ones driving, they're the ones doing the maintenance, they're the ones fixing things when they go wrong. We camp out nearly every night in the savannah. It's a stunning place. The stars are amazing. You can literally see the Northern Star turn 180 and see the Southern Cross at the same time. It's absolutely brilliant. And you get to experience both the jungle and the savannah. And of course, you're covering a large area of terrain because you have the vehicles. You probably cover more than 1 hour in ATVs and 4x4s than we can do in a week in the jungle itself. The kayak expeditions, those are the inflatable kayaks I mentioned to you. I was sold on them. I watched a YouTube video and some guy got a shotgun and then shot it at this thing and it just bounced back and you actually got a pellet in the shoulder. And I haven't actually tried it yet because they cost a bit of money, so I'm not tempted. But I have taken these things, we've thrown them out of helicopters like you can see there, just in the hover, and then we jump out after them. We've taken them down rapids, through rocks, through jungle rivers that are just crisscrossed with broken trees and sharp thorns, and we've never had a tear. They're unbelievably great things. It's normally 2 in each kayak with your kit, and that's what you live from. So every time we're on new rivers, we're going in by helicopter or out by helicopter. Often we come across rapids, which we didn't know were there. The Google Earth imagery of Guyana is not great. The mapping is very poor. It was done in the 60s with old school cameras in aircraft. So we don't have detailed knowledge before we go there. We're the first ones to get that knowledge. So there's often, and this happened to me in March, we were doing a trip and about 2 days in, we hit a 100-foot drop waterfall, followed by about 1 kilometer of rapids. But because the kayaks are inflatable, well, you can just roll them up, put them on your backs, and portage around it. It's a really great little form of transport. Generally, in the 2-week trip, we probably cover about 100 miles plus. It all depends on the flow of the water and so forth. And of course, we're camping out every night in the jungle. So that's in hammocks in the forest, with the howler monkeys and everything else that makes a noise. On the TV world, I won't mention too much here. I think I've covered most of it, but we do quite a lot of productions. There's Gordon Ramsay on the helicopter skid about to abseil out into the jungle in the right-hand photograph. That image on the left is a chap called Dr. Bruce Means, one of the world's greatest people I've ever met. 70-something years of age when he came here, done 65 expeditions in his life to the jungles, was a world leader in his knowledge, taught us so much information, really good guy, liked to stay up drinking rum with the young ones at night, so we really loved him. And that was a great show called Lost Worlds. We were in the Tepui Mountains and all over, so it was a stunning thing. And you probably see quite a lot of these TV shows out there. There's a list of them on our website if you want to have a look. But some of the people, some of the shows that you might have heard of, the channels of BBC, Nat Geo, Discovery, History Channel, Channel 4 TV in the UK. And we got the likes of Gordon Ramsay out here, Channing Tatum. And then if it hadn't been for COVID, next month we'd be having Will Smith out here hosting a show called One Strange Rock from Kaicho Falls, which you'll see in a moment. So Guyana then, it's a stunning country. It is home to the Tepui, which are the tabletop mountains of Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World fame. This is what they look like from on top of them. Big, tall mountains up to 9,000 feet in height, straight up out of the jungle. The one on the right, Mount Roraima, that is the one that the Pixar movie Up is based on. And the team actually came out to take photographs with fancy cameras before they went back and CGI'd it all into the movie. Stunning place, very difficult to get to, very remote. We just did an expedition in November where we had a team of gold climbers climbing that vertical face on Mount Roraima in the image on the right. That's 2,000 feet, by the way. That little bit of rock, so it's quite big. That took them about 2 months, first people ever to do it. The jungle, as I say, 87% of Guyana is forested. It is pristine jungle, and pristine means that it hasn't been affected by humans in such a manner as to change the ecosystem. So we haven't reduced species. We've had a significant effect on how the ecosystem lived, and there's only rainforest area in the world like that, this being one of them. So stunning place, trees was I can see, and some big as well, like the silk cotton tree you see there. The savannah, as I mentioned, I think it's about nearly 6 million acres of terrain that is savannah grassland, brilliant for horse riding. Stunning place, my favorite place. I'm actually there right now in the heart of the savannah, right on the border with Brazil. And this is, if they had internet and I could communicate with the rest of the world, that's where I would spend the rest of my days. But there's not even electricity down there, just God's light. The rivers of Guyana, I mentioned, Guyana means land of many rivers. They go from small little things that you can see on the left there, creeks with trees down, and the big waterfalls like Kaituura on the right, and up to the huge rivers like the Essequibo. It's big enough at its mouth to drop Barbados in and to lose it. So it's quite a big mass of water. The people, obviously one of the key things. And these, despite all my years in the military training, this is where I've learned the most from, learning from these guys. That's Milner on the left, fixing his bow and arrow. And on the right is Sparrow, Captain Sparrow, Jack Sparrow, on a bamboo raft that we had made. Brilliant, brilliant people. They all speak English. So communication with them is as easy as anywhere else. And the stories that they have and the lifestyle that they live is absolutely amazing. So I recommend you just to come, if only just to come and visit with the people. And then, of course, the wildlife. Guyana is known as land of the giants. We have lots of wildlife, and because it's so densely forested, and because there are so few humans, there is a lot of this. The jaguar that you see in the top right, where I live in the Rupununi, they reckon there's more jaguars than there are people. And the likes of the harpy eagle, the giant river otters, black caiman, that huge big anaconda you can see there. If you go to the right place, finding these things is a relatively straightforward thing to do. And luckily, I've managed to see pretty much everything in Guyana many, many times over. And that's it. So thanks for your time. If anyone has any questions or specific queries, let me know. I know we're looking to do future webinars about specific trips in more detail. But for now, over to you. Any questions? Thank you. Hey, Jenna, are you there?
Oh, thank you, Dan, for your presentation. Here I have some questions for you. The first one is, are there any river dolphins in Guyana?
River boats. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, did you hear the question?
Yeah, you were asking about river boats?
River dolphins in Guyana.
Yes, yes. There are river dolphins, yes, but they tend to be on the bigger rivers closer to the coast. They can't go inland because of all the rapids and waterfalls. But on the Essequibo, there's quite a lot of people around the Essequibo traveling by boat, and they see river dolphins, quite regularly.
Great. Then we have another question. How many groups have you taken on the jungle survival trip? Are there any favorite groups in particular? And what type of people are attracted to this type of trips?
Jungle survival, I think we've done over 100 jungle survival trips in the last 15 years. And that makes up about 1/3 to a half of all the trips that we've done. Every group is a favorite, of course. So I've got to be diplomatic. And as far as the people coming on it, it's such a huge cross section. They have to be 18 to come on the course. It's for adults. But we had one guy who was 72 from Norway, and he was probably the strongest guy on the course. And it's ranged. We've had a Hollywood movie star. We've had guys who work in construction, people who are doctors. Some reason everyone from France seems to have a PhD. Maybe they're just super intelligent over there. But it's a wide range from all over the world. We've had people from Saudi Arabia, from Europe, from the States, from Australia. So it's a very, very broad spectrum of people.
Great, thank you. Then we have a third question. We have a client which is really interested in exploring the tepuis. So he's asking if you have any tepui trip upcoming.
Yes, we do. We actually had one planned for October this year, where we're actually going into a tepui by helicopter, spending the night on top. Then we rappel down the side on ropes, trek out through the jungle, and then a kayak extraction for a few days along a river. But of course, everything at the moment is on hold because of the issues with COVID. And then we're planning another one for next year, where we actually go to Mount Roraima, the biggest of all the tepui. There's a lot of tepui, by the way. There's not just one or two. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of them. And certainly most in Guyana have never had anyone on. So that's definitely an area where we're doing more of. But to physically get on top of a tepui basically means you need to be like Spider-Man on ropes, because they are vertical, straight up rock faces, or go in by helicopter. And we normally use the helicopter because it's just quicker in the time that we have.
Great. Then we have another question, and I like this question. What's more dangerous, caiman or jaguar?
Humans. I mean, clearly both of them could easily kill a human being. You are not going to win a fight. But it just really does not happen as, I don't know, it's the Hollywood world or whatever making out every animal to be predators, but they're certainly not after human beings. I've swam with big 15-foot long black caiman 10 feet away from me in the rivers, and they're not interested in attacking humans. I mean, clearly you use your common sense. You don't sort of tease them or bait them or prod them with a stick, because that stick is not going to protect you. But attacks by any animal other than mosquitoes are exceedingly rare, very, very rare. I mean, literally one or two in decades. So if you see one of these things, we get the cameras out, we don't run away.
Okay, we have another question. Has anyone on the survival course actually shot anything with the bows and arrows?
Yeah, absolutely. The problem though is not their ability, The problem is most people just put their bow and arrow next to a tree and then walk off to do something. So if you don't have the thing which is going to help feed you, you're not going to be able to get any food. So there are a few occasions people have come back and they've been to the water and there was a big catfish or something in the shallows, but they just didn't have the bow and arrow with them. So they go back for it and come back and the course is gone. So yeah, it's and we practice a lot with the bows and arrows. They're indigenous bows and arrows they're physically made by the people that are teaching them how to use them. So it does take some practice. But yeah, it's been done and I'm sure will continue to be done.
Great. Do you expect any adventures to take place later this year? I heard that, yes, you are planning a trip maybe in September, October, but this is depending on the evolution of the COVID-19. Are you already taking bookings for the trip, or how are you handling that?
Yeah, the big issue for us with regard to COVID is flights, because of course, if you can't actually get to these places internationally, then there's not much we can do. And of course, that's what we're monitoring most closely. We do have a trip planned for October, which already has a group planned for it. And I'm hopeful that by October, the flight limitations will be lifted. Of course, the big thing with Guyana is this is literally the best social distancing you can possibly do, because where we're going, no one has been for thousands of years, if ever. And there's no one around us. 2 meters is it's more like 200 miles. So it's great from that perspective, but it is all down to when flights actually start to kick in. Hopefully by October that will be the case. But we have updated the website with dates, and we are looking at not just October, but survival course in December, and then hopefully a full schedule through 2021.
Great. And I think the last one for today's webinar, do you need experience of rope work?
Right, okay, well, depends what you're doing. Pretty much all the trips that we do, you don't need any experience with regard to the ropes, the survival, the 4x4s or anything, because we plan them to be based on someone, average Joe being able to come out and do them. So the abseil one that we're doing, for example, we have instructors with us who will be handling all the safety side of it, and all that is based on UK standards. And we actually do training beforehand so that how the devices work that you'll be using and how the safety backup works and so forth is very clear. But if you were doing something more extreme, if you wanted to climb the side of one of these great tapuis, it's not just the rope work, of course, but it's the ability to physically climb rock that's overhanging that you would need. But they tend to be one-off expeditions. Pretty much all the trips that we do, anyone can come on. The only exception really are the more advanced trips, such as the extreme survival, and that's not so much about a person's physical skills, but us knowing the person already and knowing their character and their mindset, and make sure they've got a positive mental attitude, because of course it's the jungle can be an extreme environment, so we need people to be switched on, as we would say. But generally, no previous experience required.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Ian, for your today's webinar. So this was Explore Guyana, the Bushmaster Way webinar for today. We really appreciate your time and connections with us today. And again, if we can help or assist you in any way, we will be happy to do it. So do not hesitate to contact Jenna, Jane, Jessie, or Anna at the Emerging Destinations team. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon and look forward to having your clients traveling to Guyana very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.